Now, are you looking to any other councils statewide as best practices?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So there are 11 other councils, really 13 other councils in the state. And the youngest of which is Alachua County. And then the same time we were approved, Escambia County, Pensacola approved a Children's Services Council.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of this parallel journey that Leon and Escambia Council
Are traveling together.
we're traveling together.
Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
So I am delighted to be here with my girlfriend, Cecka Rose Green. Thanks for being here with me.
Thank you.
So it's been a few years
Yes.
since you were here on the show.
It has.
And a lot has happened between now and then.
Absolutely.
You are currently the executive director, the new executive director of the Children's Services Council of Leon County.
Yes,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. So tell me about the journey to executive director.
Man. Oh, the journey. So I think really the journey started when I was taking classes for the Certified Public Managers through Florida State
CPM.
University School of Government, and finishing that 18-month course really set me on a path to become in leadership, executive leadership. And so while I've been doing public relations for many years, at the time I was director of communications for the Housing Finance Corporation here in Leon County. I really knew at that time I wanted to become a leader in maybe a nonprofit space, a corporate space, where I was developing other leaders and hopefully changing the culture of the way we look at leadership and the way we look at fostering wonderful and positive work environments. And so I journeyed from there to another association in a communications spot, and then went to a gubernatorial campaign, which was awesome. And while my candidate did not win, I think it was a big learning experience for everyone on the campaign. And at that time, I said I really wanted my next full-time position to be in executive management. And in comes the Children's Home Society of Florida. And I became the regional executive director over the Big Bend. So that was 8 to 14 counties, depending on the program. And did that for almost 3 years.
Okay.
And during that time, voters in Leon County approved a Children's Services Council, which by statute, each community, each county can vote to determine whether they want to take a portion of their property taxes, ad valorem tax, to fund services for children, youth, and families in their county. Leon County had tried this decades before.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the climate just had not been there. But I think now, particularly coming out of the pandemic, at that time we were in the middle of the pandemic and really looking at how we bring those services together, look at innovative ways to collaborate and really push the needle so that we're getting impact and positive outcomes and hopefully reducing the number of families that need that immediate support, but rather the support on the front end. So in November of 2020, the voters overwhelmingly approved the Children's Services Council, and they got an interim administrator, Ted Granger, who was awesome. And then they began a search for a permanent executive director. And you know, in full transparency, I was more interested in the council in my role at that time. You know, how could we look at having Children's Home Society be one of those providers, come up with an innovative program that could help to move the needle. And I was approached by a community member who said, have you thought about applying and taking your talents to that level? And I went home and talked about it with my husband, Marvin.
Yes.
And he said, I think you should really consider applying.
Okay.
And so after thinking about it, I really thought, do I think that I could help this council be all that it can be? Look to the council members to work in collaboration with them to effectualize the vision of what the council would be.
Okay.
And after thinking about it, I thought, what do I have to lose?
Right.
I'm in a job that I absolutely love, but boy, wouldn't it be nice to specifically impact this community in which I live, where I choose to live, where we're raising our family. And so after a pretty exhaustive process and 166 applicants down to 6, and then down to me, here I am.
All right.
So I started on January 1, hit the ground running. Do I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose? Yes,
Of
but
course.
I'm enjoying every minute of it and working with some very talented council members to see how we go about taking this community investment and making some changes for our children, youth, and families.
Nice. Now, are you looking to any other councils statewide as best practices?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So there are 11 other councils, really 13 other councils in the state. And the youngest of which is Alachua County. And then the same time we were approved, Escambia County, Pensacola approved a Children's Services Council.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of this parallel journey that Leon and Escambia Council
Are traveling together.
We're traveling together. But definitely looked at and continue to look at other councils in the state. And so when you look at the funding, one of the higher funded councils is Miami-Dade. They are in the 91 millions
Gotcha.
At this point. And so when you look at equal funding, about the same. So St. Lucie County is about where Leon County will be, Martin County, Alachua County.
Gotcha.
So we're looking at about $9.5 to $10.5 million each year that will come from property taxes. The council is required each year to do a truth and millage workshop to determine what the millage rate will be. Statutorily, CSCs can go up to 0.5 mil.
Okay.
And
where are we?
We are at 0.375.
Gotcha.
Which ends up being about 7.5 million this year, which will give us about 5.8 million that we can do for programming. And then of course the other would be administrative and getting things up and running and staffing up and all of those things that come with effectively and efficiently running this type of quasi-governmental special taxing district.
Indeed. So what are some of the things that you are seeing that you like, that you may consider, presenting to the board, or however that works? I'm not quite sure.
So let me tell you how that works. So by statute, each CSC is required to do a needs assessment before they look at any programming or any funding that they decide to issue an RFP for. So we are in the process of a comprehensive needs assessment. And that needs assessment is being headed up by a company out of Miami, QQ Research. And it will do a few things. So it will provide us with the needs, a needs analysis, a gap analysis, so gaps in services that we're seeing here in Leon County, and a program inventory. So looking at the programs that currently exist, how many people they are serving, the populations of people they are serving, and in what areas of the county they are serving. So when you overlay all of that, you will really be able to get a landscape of what services to children, youth, and families currently look like here, and where we see the gaps and where we see the needs. The council was very clear that they wanted to try to get some funding out and on the streets before the end of this fiscal year, which for us will be September 30th.
Gotcha.
And so the first step in the needs analysis is looking at an expedited funding priority. So in April, we will have the finals on an expedited funding priority. And so these would be immediate gaps and needs that the council could look to fund. Most likely as one-time funding to be able to fill some gaps for the summer. So when I think about what could that be, it could be summer program slots, it could be childcare slots, food stability for children and families, and it could also be informational and public awareness campaigns. So I'll use Safe Sleep as an example. So the needs assessment could show us that we have a high number of child and baby deaths, infant deaths, because of what we call turnover. So when you're co-sleeping and you don't realize that you've turned over on your child, you'd be surprised how many times that happens. Or a child may have fallen out of the bed or turned over or suffocated or things of that nature. And so it could be that we do a public awareness campaign on that and see if we can move the needle in that area, or any number of things that the analysis could show us. And then we will get a final needs assessment that will show us comprehensively what we have going on in the county, and then look at how we fit that into our priority areas, and possibly have funding that will go out to be implemented on October 1st.
Let's talk about Conversations with Nicole.
Stay tuned for more Conversations with Nicole.
What is good, Tallahassee? If you are a brand, a business owner, a real estate agent, an entrepreneur, an artist of any kind, be sure to contact us at 7-Figure Vision for all of your photography and videography needs. We can shoot your next music video, event, documentary, or even document the process of your next flip as a real estate investor. So be sure to book us right now at VIIFIGUREVISION.com, or you can visit us on Facebook or Instagram at VIIFIGUREVISION.
Let's talk about Conversations with Nicole.
Now, you are a mother of 3.
I am.
And, you know, this work as a mother, you know, it's a very special assignment.
Yes.
How does being a mother inform the work that you're doing right now with the Children's Services Council?
So parenting, as you well know, there's no manual. There's no manual. And irrespective of whether your children are birthed to you, gifted to you from another family member, or in our case, gifted to us through the beauty of adoption, you don't know what you don't know. And you can take classes, you can talk with your elders, you can do all of that, but the bottom line is it's not till you get in there that you try to figure it out. And so when I think about my parenting, probably didn't always make the right decisions. You do the best you can with what you have, and I think you learn with each child.
Because we learn that each child is different.
We learn that each child is different, and what works with one child may not work with another child.
Right.
So just having that in my own wheelhouse and experience, I think at this time, you know, the Bible says for everything there is a season, right? And so I can't imagine that I could do this work while parenting young children. While I worked while our children were young, it was definitely a challenge.
Right.
But now that they are older and seeing some of the things that I think they could have used, maybe programs from which they could have benefited, because we're not just talking about programs for low-income kids or low-income families or families that are in poverty. Yes, that is absolutely a need. But I think that what this pandemic has shown us is that there are gaps for all of our kids, particularly mental health and mentoring. I think every parent will tell you, it doesn't become real until somebody else tells my child that that is what they're supposed to do.
Right.
But mom and or dad can tell them, and we just don't know what on earth we are saying. And so I think it definitely informs the passion behind what the council does, what I am doing in this role in making connections with providers and groups and having some very honest and transparent conversations about how their programs are implementing, whether they're evidence-based, whether they're trauma-informed, and whether they are really getting results that are moving the needle, or are they just treating the symptom? So yeah, it informs, I think, every bit of what we do, and particularly what I'm doing.
Absolutely. I mean, this is sort of your baby of sorts, since you're the first, and you know, you're building this plane as you fly it, right?
Absolutely. I used to work at the Department of Children and Families, and Judge Carney, Kate Carney, was the secretary at the time, and she described trying to manage children in foster care, those available for adoption, and those children that age out of foster care in a place that's called independent living. And looking at that system is like changing the wheels on a bus while that bus is rolling, and in some cases rolling down the hill and gaining speed and going faster and faster. But I do feel that the beauty in coming into the council at this point is that we can make this council and the impact we have look the way that it needs to look for our community, because no two councils are the same.
Right.
When I worked at Children's Home Society, you know, we had the Community Partnership School at Sable Palm, and our favorite saying was, when you've seen one community partnership school, you've seen one. And I think that's the same for CSCs. When you've seen one, you've seen one.
Right.
And each one has the ability to build out according to what's going to be best for their community, with community input, and most importantly, with that community investment. Because if you own property in Leon County, you are supporting the Children's Services Council and the programs that we will fund.
Absolutely, and that's a great thing, you know.
Yes.
I'm excited about this council and what it's going to do, so I can't wait to see, you know, what comes up, you know, what the plans are, what the programs are, both immediate and long term.
Yes.
So yeah, looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
Now, as a Black woman in leadership, what do you bring with you to this position as a Black woman in leadership?
Wow. So it's kind of a loaded question, and kind of not.
It is.
If it's one thing these last couple of years have taught us, is that as far as we've come as a country when it comes to race relations, gender relations, we've come a long way, for sure. As Virginia Slims, which most of the audience probably don't remember, Virginia Slims cigarettes that were targeted toward women. We've come a long way, baby.
Yep.
So we've come a very long way. But I think it also showed how much further we have to go in this place we call equity. And I use the word equity versus equality, because equity is about giving people the tools that they need that are specific to them so that they can achieve their greatness. And I use that instead of success because I heard Cornel West speak at a national conference, and he very clearly articulated that we are handicapping our children and youth when we tell them we want them to be successful. Because in this day and age, success is defined by external factors. You should live in a mansion, then you'll be successful. You should drive this type of car, then you'll be successful. As a procurer of designer bags myself, you should carry this bag, and that shows that you're successful.
What should you carry?
Oh man, I'm not gonna say. Maybe I should say, maybe they'll give me a shout out and send me one to carry. But I'm partial to Gucci and Louis Vuitton.
Okay.
For sure. And what he said is, what we rather should say is we want you to be great, because greatness is defined by the person, not by society. And so with that, I think we have seen that if we pay attention to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and my colleague Holly McPhail added another letter that now I have accepted, belonging. If we focus on the diversity, the equity, the inclusion, and the belonging for every individual, irrespective of their race, their gender identity, their sexual orientation, religion, or creed, that is when we get to a point that we are truly allowing people to reach their greatness. So as a Black woman in this type of position, and I'll go even further to say, I am the only Black that holds this position in the 13 councils across the state, it is hugely important, I believe, for me to be a role model for other women, other girls, other Black girls, Hispanic girls, girls of color, to show that if you put your mind to it, and if you do the best job that you can do, the road will rise up to meet you, and the universe will bring you what you need to achieve that greatness. Because it does not fall, I am consciously aware that where I am now is divinely purposed. And if anyone followed the news about how this all unfolded, it is divinely purposed. And with that comes a lot of responsibility, because I do believe that I've been given a lot, and so it is my responsibility to give back a lot as well. But it's for sure, I don't have to speculate about what it feels to be in a marginalized population, because I'm in a marginalized population. I don't have to speculate about being a part of a gender that historically has not been paid the same as the other gender, has not been supported the same as the other gender. And while we are different, absolutely, if we are doing the same job, we should be compensated the same. So I take it very seriously. And while I don't let it dominate the work that I do, I absolutely let it be a part of the work that I do, because that is just who I am, and it would be disingenuous to do anything different from that.
Okay, very well said. Now, you talked about mental health. How important is that in the work that you're doing with the council, and maybe the implementation of some mental health services or resources or that sort of thing? I'm hoping that the council will consider some of that as you all move forward.
Yes, so there are so many priorities out there, and there are so many needs out there, that as the council was forming and storming and having public input, the council finally came down to these priority areas. And so we're looking at success in school life as a priority area. We're looking at stability of the family, food stability, that kind of stability. And then we're also looking at, and of course the third one escapes me right now.
Yes, okay.
The third priority. But I think when we talk about mental health, it really can go across all of those priority areas. We know that in the schools there is a huge need for it. And there was a huge need before the pandemic, okay, let's just say. But I think after the pandemic, it has become even more, the need has become greater. The socio-emotional skills of children, particularly those who have been home for 2 years and now are trying to come into kindergarten, or maybe they were just in first or second grade, they've been home for 2 years, they come to school and they do not know how to socialize with their classmates. Additionally, just the trauma that happens in many of these homes.
Right.
And school becomes that safe place. And then let's just talk about mental health, period. I think anyone who has been pinned up for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, understands that there is a mental impact there. So what I think I am feeling confident in saying is that that is a recurring theme in everything that we've heard in our provider forums and in our parent forums that have been held for the needs assessment. And I am sure that as we look at this funding, this expedited funding, and as we look at our long-term funding, how we will issue that, mental health could be a part of that. We actually have a program services committee meeting coming up, and that is the committee that will bring the recommendation on how we look at expedited funding, how we look at our funding moving forward, how we effectuate these priorities that we have, and understanding that we could see some immediate needs that literally need to be funded to keep these children, youth, and families from literally falling off the cliff. The cliff.
Yeah, I got you.
And then we may have to stabilize some things before we can look at, okay, so now how do we fund outcomes to help move the needle? Because ideally, what I see the council becoming is the beacon that changes the way that we think about and provide human services, services to the humans in Leon County differently.
Okay.
How do we do that? We do that in a collaborative manner, and we do that looking at the outcome. And if the outcome is moving the needle on the front end, so that you go from having all of this need on the back end, where you're literally treating the symptoms, you're able to fix it on the front end so that the back end becomes smaller and smaller.
Right.
So now your impact is greater because you're keeping these children, youth, and families out of that pipeline, and you're able to give these children, youth, and families what they need to keep them from falling off and bring them back to the first part of the continuum.
Yeah, I call it starting with the end in mind.
Starting with the end in mind, that's
Okay,
it.
good.
And the council absolutely thought of these priorities, made these the priorities with that.
Okay.
Starting with the end in mind. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, my final question, because
Yes.
I could talk to you, you know,
Forever.
right? But my final question is, what do you believe is your greater work?
My greater work. I believe that my greater work at the end of the day, by the time this council comes up for reapproval in 10 years, it is a no-brainer for this community. And in 10, 20, 30 years, by that time I'll be in my 80s, that I have made a difference that is so palatable that it is undeniable how much better our community is. That is what I think my greater work is.
Okay.
And in that, I leave myself open to the innovative ways that that can happen, and not box myself into it has to happen this particular way. Because I am a testament that everything that I thought would happen in my life and the roadmap that I had for my life couldn't have ended up any more different if someone had told me. From my major in college, from marrying a northern guy who's 3 years younger than me, from adopting 3 kids, and moving from a PR background to now executive management in a child well-being state. You would have never told me that at age 18. And so that is what I think my greater work is, making sure that this council is undeniably one of the best things that could happen to this community.
All right. And we are believing that that will happen and wishing and praying it for you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Yes, for sure. And you'll have to come back and give us an update.
Absolutely.
All right. And thank you all for joining us on Conversations with Nicole, where we are connecting the community through conversations. We'll see you next time.